Retro.
Hey, this is Lauren Mary Kim, and I'm the stunt double for Ahsoka Tano in Clone Wars and the armorer in The Mandalorian. You're listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. This is the way.
Hello, and welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithling.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
TGIF. It is Friday, and that means it's time for another discussion of Star Wars news. But before we get into the latest, Jay, want to remind everybody what our social media contacts are.
My pleasure, as always, Dennis. We are on Facebook and Instagram conveniently at Podcast Stardust.
All right, the dish is aligned, the signal's boosted to maximum output, the shield's down. We are now broadcasting to the galaxy. So this is the week's Star Wars news, and I didn't even realize this was a thing until I saw like 24 news sites pick this story up. But yes, in fact, Pedro Pascal is going to be involved with The Mandalorian and Grogu. Apparently, there's been a lot of consternation out there that he was not involved at all with this movie, and I just assumed that he'd be doing at least the voice of The Mandalorian. But at any rate, Sigourney Weaver is the one that confirmed all this. She was speaking with Collider at the Toronto International Film Festival for another movie whose name I forgot to write down. She confirmed that Pedro Pascal is, in fact, involved. That was the entire comment on this. I'm assuming Brendan Wayne and Lateef Crowder are also doing work as the Mandalorian on that movie, as they did in the series. But had you heard anything about this? Was this a thing for you, or this just kind of seemed to be like a weird thing out of the blue for me?
Well, I had heard some buzzing about this because everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but there was a lot of fans that were kind of making light of the fact that there was largely absent Pedro even in the last season of The Mandalorian in terms of most of the body double work being done by, as you just mentioned, Lateef and Brendan Wayne. So I knew that he was, I mean, like you, I knew he was at least going to do the voice, but I honestly didn't know how much he was going to be doing any kind of physical work, because depending upon where the Mando is with, the whole "this is the way" helmet thing, he may never take his helmet off. So, yeah, that's about all I know, though.
Right. I mean, I'm assuming the majority of the on-screen time for The Mandalorian is going to be portrayed by Brendan Wayne or Lateef Crowder, because Brendan Wayne was typically the stand-in, as I understand it, for any shot where the Mandalorian just might be there, or if he was wielding his blaster. And then if it was a physical fight, that was typically Lateef Crowder. And maybe that's not an accurate description of the entire division of the work. But again, my understanding was Lateef was pretty much the stand-in for a lot of the hand-to-hand combat type stuff. And so I wasn't really expecting Pedro to be on set a whole lot, other than for probably a scene or two where his helmet might come off. And if you're going to bill Pedro Pascal in the movie, I'm assuming at some point they're going to let us see his face. So
or they're just using his name as the way to make sure to lure everybody in there.
Yeah, but he's just such a draw these days that I would assume that they'd want to show us his face at some point. And and maybe they don't. But like you said, the whole not removing your helmet thing isn't really an issue as far as we can tell with the Mandalorians anymore. And if it is, he can just go back to Mandalore and go bathe in the waters again. They have the planet. So it's, now that we think about that, isn't it kind of it's not much of a penance anymore. If you remove your helmet, and you could be forgiven if you go bathe in the living waters of Mandalore. Well, now you got the planet back in your possession. It's just a matter of going home and going to take a bath. So
this is true. But yeah, you're talking about how much of a draw Pedro is. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about, the guy's got basically almost every major franchise imaginable, and he's played some sort of major role in all of them. I mean, you've got
Yeah.
Star Wars, you've got Marvel, you got Game of Thrones, The Last of Us is super huge,
He's been in DC.
Gladiator, yeah, DC Wonder Woman, and he was in
Uh,
The Kingsman. So, I mean, he's been everywhere.
I think Star Trek is like the only big hole in his resume.
Oh, yeah. Maybe that will
Well,
end up happening. You never know.
you said Game of Thrones, right? As part of that
Yeah.
list. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, yeah, he's in demand, and he's done everything. So just
definitely.
about everything. So, well, turning to some Disney Plus television news, we have the results of the Emmys, and Andor managed to pick up 4 awards. Didn't get the best drama that we were hoping for, but I think deep down we
Yeah.
knew that was probably going to happen. But it did win, like I said, 4 awards. First off, and I know this is one that you were hoping for, Jay. It got the award for outstanding fantasy sci-fi costumes for the Harvest episode, which is the
Yes.
last episode of the first arc. That award went to Michael Wilkinson, Kate O'Farrell, Richard Davies, and Paula Fajardo. I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that last name correctly, who are basically the costume and assistant costume designers on the show.
Yes, I was so excited for them because, of course, I follow all of them on Instagram and some of the processes that were involved in creating those costumes. And they were just so exquisite and just so well thought out in terms of, I know Star Wars in general has had a legacy of amazing costumes. I mean, just Padme. That's just one huge example
Right.
right there of all the things, and Trisha Bigger and whatnot. But this is just carrying on that legacy. And so I was just so tickled for them because, I am a little biased, as you pointed out, but it's definitely well deserved.
Oh yeah, we both are here. But yeah, I know that when we talked about the nominations, that's one you were particularly excited about. So
Hmm.
the second award they picked up was Outstanding Production Design for a Narrative Period or Fantasy Program, 1 hour or more, and that was for the Who Are You episode, which is part of that Gorman Massacre arc that they had.
Yeah.
Luke Hull, production designer, Toby Britton, supervising art designer, and Rebecca Alleyway, the set decorator, picked up the award for that. Hard to argue with that. That was an amazing set. That was
Oh, yeah.
they did a fantastic job with that episode and portraying Gorman there. It was contained for most of it. Was that I don't want to say square because it was a circle, but that place where the massacre had happened, and then a second massacre had happened there over the course of that episode. But they made it look good.
Oh, they sure did. And it was so riveting in the acting and everything. It's sad that we didn't get more nods for the acting in Andor because there's just so good talent.
Yeah, it was only Forrest Whitaker and Alan Tudyk that got
Mhm.
nominations for that, and neither one of them won. So,
Right.
all right, the third award was Outstanding Picture Editing for a Drama Series, also for the Who Are You episode, and that went to Yan Miles, the editor for that one. And I guess I would need to go back and look at that. And I would not necessarily be a particularly good judge of telling how well something was edited when when you talk about it, because I don't even know how they figure out that award, because you don't know what footage you had. I'm assuming part of the editing is deciding when to go from one shot to another shot and the like. Yeah, but as I was saying, I don't really know how you would necessarily tell that someone did a particularly great job editing something, unless you're basically looking at the changes in the way things are put together and how you went from shot to shot. Someone more knowledgeable than I would have to tell us how you figure out something like that.
Yeah, and I'm with you, but I just thinking about that particular episode, especially with the Gorman Massacre, I mean, there were so many different points of view. There were so many different things going on. I mean, I can imagine that there's so many more like three-dimensional sorts of scenes that needed to just be pieced just right. And so, yeah, I don't know the first thing about it, but I sure am glad we get to see the final result.
hmm And then the final Emmy that they picked up was Outstanding Special Visual Effects in a Season or Movie. That went to Mohan Leo for the visual effects supervisor, TJ Falls, the visual effects producer, Luke Murphy, special effects supervisor, Neil Scanlon, special creature effects by Scott Pritchard, the ILM visual effects supervisor. Joseph Kasparian, hybrid visual effects supervisor. Man, a lot of people. Sue Rowe, Scanlon, visual effects supervisor. Paulo D'Arco, in-house visual effects supervisor, and Jean-Clement Sauret, the digital colorist. And yeah, I mean, why not? It was a fantastic looking show with all the effects. So well deserved on that one as well.
Absolutely. And you know that they have so many people. I mean, these are the supervisors and producers. So there's so many different people underneath them that,
Mm-hmm.
are obviously worthy of all of those accolades as well. I know every time I go to a movie and I sit there and watch the credits, it just blows my mind all of the people that are part of the puzzle. It's just
Right.
incredible to bring it to a screen like that for all of us to enjoy.
Indeed. Indeed. Well, that was not the only Lucasfilm related property that picked up some Emmys. Music by John Williams won the Creative Arts Emmy Award for Outstanding Sound Editing, and that went to Ramiro Belgart, the editor for that. And so, yeah, I mean, you and I raved about how much we enjoyed that documentary on John
Yes.
Williams
Yes.
after we watched it. And it was worthy of every award that's thrown its way, as far as I was concerned, and probably needs more than what it's got. But that was just so fantastic. I'm glad it got at least some sort of recognition.
Oh, yes, indeed. And, all the accolades that it can get, definitely worthy. Very,
Uh-huh.
very deserved.
Okay, well, moving past the Emmys, we've had another look at Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy Pieces of the Past. This is going to be a little bit of a spoiler for an appearance by a character. So if you are a couple characters, so if you don't want to be spoiled, start skipping ahead a few minutes. I don't know how long we're going to be talking about this, but I'm really excited. So with that having been said, Jay, we got a clip from Pieces of the Past that features Dark Side Obi-Wan Kenobi partnering up with Darth Revan.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that, and it was so cool. I was
Oh,
so excited when I saw that.
oh, yeah. I mean, talk about, a deep dive. And I love the fact that, it's so fitting for pieces of the past,
Uh-huh.
and especially because Revan has been such a beloved character for those that are into Knights of the Old Republic and just expanded universe slash legends. And so good. So good.
Yeah, well, Darth Revan was so important to the expanded universe based on the Knights of the
Mhm.
Old Republic game, and I'm not gonna. I'm assuming everyone knows what the big twist is in that game from here. And then, of course, he showed up in the Old Republic MMORPG, and he was also the subject of a novel written by Drew Karpyshyn, and so he's had plenty of play in the expanded universe. And look, the Lego shorts are not canon, but it's kind of like thinking of Marvel the multiverse. It's kind of like that type of thing. It's like one galaxy over from canon there
Mhm.
for me. And just seeing him being treated with that degree of relevance at this point. Yeah, if you're going to include Jackson, why not include Darth Revan?
Right. Yes.
And just kind of, and they did a funny little gag. He comes onto the screen and you get to see Sig, goes, kind of geeks out by seeing Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's all big pan. He's like, oh, I'm not familiar with Darth Revan. And Revan doesn't say anything. He's like, oh, not much of a talker, which is kind of an inside joke because when you're playing Knights of the Old Republic, when you're interacting with all the other characters, they have voice actors, but no one was providing Darth Revan's lines. You were just reading those off a screen on that. And so the fact that he doesn't actually talk is if you're thinking about it on a meta level, is kind of a funny reference to the actual game itself.
It truly is, and I love the way that Sig says it too. And Darth Revan, as you mentioned, not as familiar with your work. I'm
Yeah.
guessing by the way you're dressed. Old Republic.
Yeah. Not much of a talker, I see.
Such a
So,
great, yeah,
yeah.
no, and I love that you pointed that out because that truly is for those that have played KOTOR and know anything about it, that is just, one of those like, "Oh, I get why you did that," kind of a thing, which is super cool.
Yeah. Well, and it's coming to Disney Plus on September 19th, which I looked at and I was like, oh, Jay and I are going to have to revise our recording schedule for the end of September
Yeah, yeah.
to take that in. So, at any rate, we will definitely be covering that like we just did the Rebuild the Galaxy special that came out last year on the show.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Okay, just a couple stories left. Up first, the HasLab Star Wars Vintage Collection LAATI gunship has funded. That closed earlier this week, and it had a target of 8,000 backers. It managed to acquire 10,541 backers, which was enough to fund the project and unlock the first stretch goal, which was the Coleman Trevor exclusive carded figure. And we are now expecting this to ship in the fall of 2026. Jay, and you and I kind of been talking about this a little bit, mainly off mic. We did kind of give an update a couple weeks ago on the show. So yeah, I'm happy that funded. I was hoping it would unlock all the stretch goals for everyone who had backed it, but didn't quite get that far. But at least it got backed. And the additional characters for that, I believe, have been released in other formats, unlike because it was
Okay.
Sassy Teen and Agent Kohler, and I'm pretty sure those are
Mhm.
out there somewhere, but I'm not sure that
Okay.
Coleman Trevor had been. So at least they got the unique one out of all that.
Yeah, that's good. Because I was gonna ask you that, I'm unfamiliar with those other, carded figures, as you just mentioned. But, I mean, as far as how they produce those, would they only do a few prototypes and then wait to see if the stretch goals are obtained? But it sounds like they are, like, as you said, available through, other ventures. So that's good that people can still get them, and then if they do have this, particular, vehicle that they can go ahead and join Agent Colar or Coleman Trevor with that too.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's this is a different sculpt for these characters, or maybe I'm wrong and they're not available in the Black Series the way that Coleman Trevor is now going to be available. But it would have been a freebie included for what you're already paying for, and now it's not there. And the fact is that you get a card that would not be available to the rest of the public if you backed it this
Mhm.
way. And we all know how collectors like their exclusives.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
All right.
cool.
Last story we got in this week's news is that we touched on this briefly, but Darth Vader's lightsaber was up for auction at the Prop Store Entertainment Memorabilia live auction, and it was expected to go for $1 to $3 million. Yeah, when you figure all the fees and premiums that were involved, it ended up selling for $3,654,000, setting a new record for Star Wars memorabilia out there.
Oof.
New franchise record there. That just blows my mind here. I mean, it is a screen used item. I get that. Both The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. But wow, that's just insane. It's not like it was used by, I'm not sure it was actually used by David Prowse. It's so much like the stunt fighter, that,
Mhm.
that did those things. And it was James Earl Jones or any of those people that we normally associate with Darth Vader. But the fact that it's the screen used item just propelled its value that high.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I just think that's so cool. So
Mhm.
whoever ended up with that, I hope that they are the happiest camper in the galaxy right now because that is a heck of a lot of money to pay for any kind of memorabilia. I don't care what it is. But, as we mentioned before, this is unique in the
Mhm.
fact that it was the first types of props amongst its time, type at the time to truly take things to the next level. And it was so unique. And I mean, this is what really literally built an empire when you look at all of the things that have come since and just the fact that this is the original iconic lightsaber. That is so cool.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this a lot when I was putting together the notes because this was like one of the first things I found. But just the way I organize notes, it's one of the last stories we're talking about. But I was trying to decide that would I really want something like this? And go with me here for a second because
Mhm.
yeah, this is cool. I mean, no doubt about it. And I would love to go someplace and see it, or give me a pair of white gloves and pick it up and handle it for a little bit. But if I had it here, what would I do with it? How would I possibly enjoy this thing? Just have it sitting in my room? Because at what you've paid for it, how do you appropriately enjoy something like that? Is this making sense? I
No,
mean,
it
it's like
makes total sense. Yeah, because
because
'cause
like,
you'd be afraid to do anything with it. It would
well,
literally just sit there and be admired.
if you've got this in your house, what do you have to do to secure your house? And it's not like you can just throw your doors open necessarily to your home to the public to come in and see something like this. So I guess if I had something like this, I would be loaning it out to some sort of a museum that would display it, and they would say on the little card, make sure, on loan from the Dennis Keithley collection, or something like that. And that's all good and well. But here's my question for you. And I was trying to decide, it's like, okay, suppose someone at Lucasfilm comes up and gives you this offer. Jay, we'll give you this prop, this Darth Vader's lightsaber, or something of its equivalent value. Princess Leia's dress. You pick it, your favorite prop in all of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Or we will send you to Italy to see the shooting locations for what we use for Naboo. And then we'll send you to Tunisia to see the shooting locations for where we did shots on Tatooine. And we'll send you to Jordan so that you can see where we shot stuff from The Rise of Skywalker. And then I think it was Norway where they shot some of the Hoth stuff. And the island off of Ireland where they shot Ashto and stuff like that. So basically a collection of experiences where you could go see the places where this stuff was shot.
Mm-hmm.
Which do you choose? And I'm going to close down the loophole where you take the lightsaber and then sell it and get $3 million and do things like that. That's not the choice. You're either taking because that's what everyone is going to, oh, I'm clever, I'll sell this and make money. And I can do, no, that's not the choice we're making here. It's either you get the prop and you keep the prop, or
Mm-hmm.
you get to go see these places, throw in or alternatively, none of that. And you go get to spend like a couple days at Skywalker Ranch. Seeing all the props and where they make the movies and that type of thing. What are you going to pick?
Oh my gosh. And it's so funny that you say you can't resell it. It reminds me of, if you have the genie in the lamp, you can't vote for 3 more wishes at your
Right.
last wish kind of thing.
Yeah.
No loopholes like that. Well, it's funny that you ask that, because I was just thinking about this very same concept the other day, in terms of if you would have asked 25-year-old me which one I would have wanted, I definitely would have said the lightsaber. Like, I
Right.
want the lightsaber. I want that physical thing. I want to be able to have it, to own it, to treasure it, and never give it up. But the older I get, the less things are important to me as are experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So as wonderful as it would be to own that lightsaber, I would definitely, at this point in my life, pick those experiences.
Yeah.
How about you?
No, I'm right there with you. And it just was and that was just the thing. It was like, if I had millions and millions of money, the stupid money that we've talked about in the past, where you could
Mhm.
do something like this, and no hate towards whoever got this. This is a fantastic idea. I think you said it well. Whoever's got this, I hope it's a valued part of their collection. They can treasure it and it brings them joy and it's everything they want it to be. But it's just I don't know. I mean, I collect Star Wars Lego models and I collect Star Wars art. I've got tons of so many that I can't even hang them all up in my office right now. Tons of books to the point I ran out of space and I'm now stacking them up. And so I got to redesign the office to accommodate all these things. So, the point is I've got plenty of stuff, but like you just said, over the past couple decades, it's like what I'm really valuing now is the memories, going
Mhm.
places and taking the pictures and the experiences. Going to Star Wars Celebration is awesome, but it's seeing all my friends that are there and seeing the celebrities that are there. And yeah, I come back with some souvenirs, but that's to remind me of the time. I'm not looking for the exclusive collectible. I mean, lots of people go there. And again, if that's what you're into, no shame on my part. It's just that we all value things differently. Some people don't want to travel, and that's great. Something like Darth Vader's lightsaber would be perfect for them. But it's just as I don't know. I think it's something that just kind of comes with age at this
Mhm.
point.
I
It's
agree.
there's only so many things you can put in your collection, and then what are you going to do with all it? You can't enjoy all of it at once anymore. And
Right.
there's something about getting out there and seeing these things and meeting people and doing that stuff that just has got an appeal.
Yes, absolutely. And I guess the only, caveat to that would be that if it was something that I could pass on, like
Yeah,
passing the baton kind of a thing, which I know that either one of my boys, who are now grown men, but still call them boys and always will,
sure.
they would definitely appreciate it, as something that mom had and was passed down to them. So that would be the only thing that would maybe change my mind. But it's funny because in that whole, cogitating the cosmos thing for me the other day, I told my husband, I'm like, I have a lot of crap. So if anything ever happened to me, I mean, you're gonna have a lot to go through. So I feel like, and that's not just Star Wars stuff. I mean, that's just things just in general. And I feel like I'm starting to be a lot more intentional with the things that I curate for not only collections, but just things, in
No,
and
I'm
you
with
know?
you. Yeah, it, yeah, I went to the local, fan expo here back in, when was that, May or June? Doesn't matter. But when I was there, it's like I saw lots of cool stuff and I enjoyed watching. I was like, oh, that'd be so awesome to have. But it's like, but then what? It's
Right. Yeah,
where
then
you're
what?
gonna where you're
Exactly.
gonna put it. And like right now, I like my collection because despite me saying I have so much art that I can't even hang it all up, I've got a lot of important pieces up on my walls, and I can see all the Lego models that I've built, and I can see my collection of books all around this room, and I can do it just sitting here looking around, and I think that works for me. But it's just, yeah. I mean, look, when it comes down to it, doing experiences is just another way of collecting. You're collecting experiences. You're collecting memories. See, it says opposed collecting physical stuff. You are in fact a collector when you prioritize the experiences and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, you just it's like why I don't do physical media when it comes to music and movies and stuff like this. I just rely on the digital and the streaming these days. And I do have some CDs and I do have some movies, but not like I used to
Right.
anymore. And
Right.
but yeah, I don't know. I didn't necessarily mean to get all philosophical here on this, but it's
No,
just
I
as
love
a
these kind of conversations.
right. It just occurred to me that part of what made Star Wars so successful was not just the movies, not just the stories that were being told, but it was all the merchandise. It was the action figures and all the things you could collect over time. And it occurs to me that like every passing year, it's the physical stuff means less and less to me, and it is the discussion of the stories and finding the ties and finding the inspirations and the experiences that comes with all this stuff that means more and more as we go through time.
Oh, I agree. And if you had to pick one thing that you treasure most in all of your Star Wars stuff, is there one that comes to mind that you would pick? And maybe tomorrow would be something different or maybe something else would come to mind, but what's the first thing that comes to mind that you feel like you would treasure, that you
Well,
love?
it's I don't even know I can answer that question, and I'm not trying to avoid it here. But when I think of that, when that question comes up, I just envision this room I'm sitting in right now.
Mhm.
It's I
Mhm.
can look at a whole bunch of stuff. I've got a Darth Vader Mr. Potato Head that my wife gave me, and gave one to my brother and my father when we were all. I think it was close to my graduation from law school, and so I got a specific memory tied to that. I've got the Lego Millennium Falcon sitting on a shelf two above me that my wife gave to me when I graduated from law school, and I put that together, and that's a memory of that. I've got various posters that I picked up from celebrations, and so it's the answer to the question is one of these things that has a specific memory tied to it.
Yeah.
Something that was going into my life, and I can't prioritize those. It's just
Mhm.
I just
Mhm.
can't. And so, I've got a Mickey Jedi plushie from one of the first times I took my kids to Walt Disney World, back before there was a Galaxy's Edge. There's so many things that are sitting around right now that have stories attached to or memories attached to them.
Yeah. No,
The
I love
stories I
that.
just bought it, but it's the trip that's fantastic. And
Right.
so yeah, I mean, I don't know that I can necessarily. There's one specific thing, but I would hate to give up this room because
Mhm.
it's just got so much stuff that I love in it. But how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on the memories being the things that truly elevate the piece, if you will, to the forefront. And for me, it's the same way. There's a couple of things when I was younger just reminding me of the true love and awe that I had for Star Wars. And I know I've shared this story with you before, but if we have any new listeners, they may not have heard this one. But I had borrowed a book from the library of the original Star Wars. And I renewed it so many times at the library that my parents finally said, "Hey, can we just buy this book for our daughter?" And they actually let me do it. So, and from there, I used that with a cassette recording of Star Wars off of HBO, and I sat down with a typewriter and I typed out the entire script to the
Wow.
movie. And I used the book as a reference points to help me spell things and to double check things. And I think I was maybe 10 at the time, maybe 12 at the time. And so that is something I have it in a folder, and it's in my basement right now. And then I would have to say, like you said, there's so many different things that have memories with my kids or whatever, but my other one I would have to say is my original Princess Leia action figure from the original Kenner line that I've had since I was little, that I recently just got signed by Jim Swearingen, who is
Mm.
the original, of course, designer for Kenner's line for Star Wars. And I met him at a convention a couple of years ago, and he signed the inside of her cape for me.
Nice.
So I still have her in a bag. I need to get one of those protective cases things for her to put her in. But of course, Princess Leia has always been one of my favorite characters. So that was my first kind of role model. And so that brought that whole experience of that awe of being a Star Wars fan as a kid full circle for me, just meeting Mr. Swearingen. So that was cool.
Well, this conversation's inspired me. We're gonna have to do some episodes where we're talking about stuff in our collections.
Yes,
I
I think
think,
that's a great idea.
yeah, and we can talk about where we got things, why it's important to us, and just a little bit about the pieces and stuff like that. Because look, we're no Steve Sansweets. We're not, we
No.
don't have that type of volume here. But we just don't have Rancho Obi-Wan sitting in our backyard. But yeah, I think we could have some fun. Just talk. I mean, because there are lots of things we could talk about. Both.
I have a feeling we have some really unique stuff between the two of us.
Indeed, indeed. Okay, well, that's coming up in the future at some undisclosed date. We'll figure it out.
Ta-da.
Well, with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this week's news. That last part, even though it wasn't much of a news discussion, the memorabilia thing, I thought that was fun. I'm glad we did that. But
Wonderful.
anyways, yeah, I just want to thank you all for joining us. And hey, if you've got a fun piece of memorabilia that's got some great memories attached to it, make sure you let us know. Jay will share our social media contacts here in just a bit, and send it to that. And we'll just love to hear about it. But with that having been said, hey, make sure you've hit that subscribe button in your podcatcher of choice, because we're doing the news every single week. We got a lot of other great episodes coming out, 3 times a week. And once you've done that, we'd love your ratings and reviews. That helps others find the show and get us noticed. And if you want to find the entire back catalog, make sure you head over to directorsapp.com, and you'll get all previous 937 shows. We've done a lot of stuff over the years, and we got a lot more coming. Jay, and now that I've teased it, you want to go ahead and tell everybody what our social media contacts are and where else we can be found online?
Yes, please reach out to us. We are on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust. That's the easiest outlets to get directly in touch. And then you can also check out our YouTube and YouTube music channels as well that do have all of our episodes. And there's no videos, but you can definitely listen to all of the episodes. And those do support subscriptions as well as reviews and also interaction. So if you have, again, like Dennis said, any memorabilia or just any reactions to any of the shows, you can do that on any of those. And then we also have our Pinterest boards, which have lots and lots of fun things for everything Star Wars. And then our T Public store, which has all of our Podcast Stardust swag available. So we have 7 different show logo designs available on all kinds of things, from t-shirts and sweatshirts and other types of apparel to home goods and pretty much everything in between. So if you need a new tote bag to tote around your memorabilia, that would be the place to do it. Or if you're going to a con and you're getting new memorabilia, that would be a great little shopping bag. So if you do happen to get something, please snap a picture and let us know. And the link to that is in our show notes.
All right. Upcoming on the show on Monday, it's time to get back into Clone Wars. We're looking at the second to last episode of season 2, which is a continuation of the story arc that we started earlier this week. And then on Wednesday, it is the monthly feature that Jay puts together for us, where she's rounding up Star Wars lifestyle and fashion products from around the galaxy and the world, known as World Between Worlds. So, with all that having been said, thanks for listening to episode 938 of Podcast Stardust, everyone. Have a great weekend. And until next time, may the Force be